IP enough, the title?
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
All right, I think we might be live.
Well, hey, that'll be good. Always makes a nice change. I am going to talk like I normally do for like a few minutes and check. Because I never know. It looks like we're live though. I posted. We are looking live. Awesome. Let's click for more. Let's get the comments up and stuff first. Yes. Cool. Awesome. Happy days. Well, first of all, hi everybody. We haven't done a live for a while actually inside this group. It's been about 2 weeks, I think, since I've done a live, which is normally weird since I'm normally in here every week trying to do something. But we are back anyway. So we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about a lot of stuff, so it might be longer than usual. We'll try not to keep you forever and ever, but me and Tim do have a habit of chatting on. We've got quite an interesting day, interesting live for you today. We're going to go into a lot more detail about kind of high ticket coaching and what actually goes into that. And the best person I know to talk about that is Tim Drummond, who's with us today. It's pretty much very kind, yeah, very kind of me to try and say that. It literally, the horrible way of saying it, but he used to literally like write the book in terms of this. It's one of the early guys to sort of come up with this approach of doing high ticket selling and using it for transformations, particularly transformations. And I think, well, actually, I'll let him introduce himself properly. I know you've met him before. There's a lot of new people in the group as well. We've had about 200 people added to the group since you was last on, Tim. So it might be good for you to have an introduction more than me chatting away.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think what I want to make today about is to understand, like, it's not necessarily about how to go and sell high ticket. Like, there's a million people inside the fitness industry that talk about that and outside as well. It's actually like, what does it actually look like? How do you deliver on that? A couple of the guys that have just started working with us recently, they actually went out and made some really good sales. They sold 3 or 4 people into a program. They sort of $1,500, something like that, which is reasonably high, obviously. And the challenge they had is like, well, they got the clients and they ran them through the program that they were shown how to do. In this context, it was by someone who's more of a marketer. And one of the guys got 4 clients, which is great, $6,000. That's a lot of money. 2 of them ghosted him. He thinks now it was because they just became so overwhelmed. Even though they had paid, they just left, stopped checking in. One of them got to, that was quite early. Then another one disappeared like halfway through. And then the other one kind of did the whole program at the end, sat there. And he said, I talked to the guy and it was basically like the last call. And the guy was nice, didn't say, I don't think this was worth what I paid for it. But basically that's what he was saying. Yeah. And the challenge becomes, it's like, what goes into a program that someone would spend $1,500 in? Now, a marketer, and I see this all the time, a marketer will be like, we'll give you our delivery systems, and they'll talk about the offer, and this is great because you need to know this, like what the offer is, but then actually when you get people in your program, what the fuck do you do? Because giving someone workout programs and doing even check-ins, which is what most people will teach, it's like you get in and you do a check-in for 20 minutes. The vast majority of people that actually buy that, at the end of it, they're wondering why they spent that sort of money. And a lot of people get lost, as in the clients. Lots of people get overwhelmed because really no one's teaching this stuff. Like no one's actually saying to trainers, like, what does a program, apart from people that are good marketers, because they're like, I saw one the other day, you can ethically swipe my program that I sold 2,000. Yeah, well, probably the person who sold it for $2,000 was probably had exactly the same experiences with his clients. And it's like, there's a reason why people are high value. And that's because fundamentally coaching and training are different things. So online coaching and online training are different things. They're a totally different skill set. Going from being in the gym as a normal PT and then deciding, right, I want to go online with my fitness business. It's not you're just a PT and you're going to go online and use someone's systems to sell it. I mean, it's great. You need that help. But it's actually a whole new skill set that people need to develop. I wouldn't say it's a totally new skill set. I give the example that I often give. I don't know, the Americans might struggle with it. Well, they probably won't. There's a game in the UK. No, they'll know rugby union.
Yeah.
So they'll understand rugby union. There's another game that we have, which they play from where like Ash is from, up north, and it's called Rugby League.
Yeah, the better one.
The man's one, right? Not the posh one.
No.
And it's like, on the face of it, they look the same-ish. There's a lots of crossover with the skill set. You could probably even say it about American football and say Australian rules. lots of people who would be good at Australian rules would be good at American football. But the people at the top, the real people at the top, it's not the same. So if you look at like a bell curve, the people that are in the middle, the average people, people that play on Sunday, they're going to be fine playing all those 3-4 games because they're quick, they understand how to handle the ball, they're big. But actually, when you want to get to the top and you want to be in the top of the industry, it doesn't transfer. You see a lot of people that try one, they're good, and then they try another. A lot of English, like rugby union players, go and try and play American football. They don't cut it.
No.
And the reason is because it's a difference. And I look at it like that. Yes, there's a lot of crossover. And if you're a good personal trainer, you're more likely to be a very good online transformation coach, habit-based coaching. You might call it we call it behavior change coaching, body transformation. You're going to be much better at it, or more likely, than someone that's not a good personal trainer, but it's a totally different skill set, and it's a totally different way of delivering it as well. So what I've been doing more recently is actually taking personal trainers, and teaching them this stuff. It's like teaching the essence of what coaching really means. Now, the issue when we say that is and we've talked about this before, Ash, is well, what is a coach? What's the differentiation between going and having a skill set of a coach, like a behavior change person understands that, and just being a coach who stands in the gym? And did you ever get to the bottom of what you would define the difference as?
I've never been able to have a kind of solid definition, boom, this is the difference. I can't do it like an elevator pitch. But the way I've always described a coach to a trainer, it's like a trainer is somebody that would, if I was going to train someone, I could stand next to them and say, you need to do this, this, and this will get you this result if you just do exactly what I say.
Yeah.
But a coach is a little bit different. A coach to me is someone that will help guide somebody and help them realize what it is they need to do in order to get the result that they want. And that's kind of my loose way of how I'll describe the difference between a coach and a trainer. Like, as a coach, I'm pretty adamant. Yes, you have to have some technical skills and things like that to do stuff. But my background, for example, was mainly in adventure coaching. I used to do kayaking. I used to do a lot of work with kayaking. You had to have a certain skill set in order to improve someone's skills in there. But when it got to doing things like whitewater, where the mentality and the psyche was very different, that was all about getting them to actually understand what they knew they had to do and let them to react in a certain way. And that was more about actually trying to get them to realize what they was capable of doing, and also allow them to come up with their own decisions to move forward with it. And the similar thing seems to happen in fitness as well, that I've found. And I think that's the big difference between the two. It's just
and even then, it's a hard thing to explain.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. It is hard to explain.
I would always look at what we've done, what we've done in the Institute of Fitness Behavior Change, the group that we've got on Facebook. It's like, what we've tried to do is we've gone out and we've looked at weight loss is a change situation, and all that means is that they're here, they're at A, they want to get to B. Who are the best people in the world? Literally, who are the best people in the world that do things like that? You're talking life coaches. You're talking, we're not psychologists, but that's what some psychologists do. People that are into organizational change, that's what they do. People like Tony Robbins, it might seem at first, well, what the hell has that got to do with me as a fitness professional? Well, probably a lot more than you would think, because what these guys do, whether it's personal development, it's I see that this has got more to do with the taking elements of things like behavior change, like personal development, and actually knitting that into what your fitness programs look like. Because I think what happens when personal trainers go online and they just use the skill set that they learned as a personal trainer, and even with some cool systems, they're probably going to get a result with maybe, I don't know, 50% of their clients, maybe, I don't know. When you learn behavior change coaching, you're likely to get a result with 90% of your clients. Now, even Tony Robbins wouldn't get a result with every single client they ever have. You can't, that's never going to happen, because the clients need to do the work. But the cool thing about when you get there is you start to understand at so many levels of why is this person, here's the thing. I tell my clients to do something, they say they're going to do it, and yet they don't. Well, why? It's not that they don't understand. They understand. And what we do as trainers is we think the solution is to tell them more stuff. The problem is not that they don't understand what you're saying or they don't understand what to do, because they do. The problem is not your training programs aren't complicated enough or you need to adjust their diet again. Mm-hmm. It's probably not the truth, because probably they're not listening to either one of them. No. The problem is they're just not doing the basics. And it's like, you can bang your head against the wall, or you can go like I did once. I was like, shit, man. I remember I had 2 clients, and one was like, did everything I said, and the other one did fuck all. Literally. Same people, same dress size, both wanted to, they were both 16, wanted to get to 12, about the same age, looked the same even. And it's like, one of them did loads of stuff, and I was like, I'm fucking awesome. And then the other one didn't do anything, and she moaned at me, why aren't I getting a result? And I just realized after that, I was like, fuck me, why are they so different? And of course, I know that we individualize training programs, but it was so different. And what I think as personal trainers we tend to do is, I could look at the woman who did really well, and in my mind, because we have something called confirmation bias, I'm going to say this person did really well because my training programs are really good. Okay, cool. So what about the other person? Was your training program not good that time? Of course, it's a different training program because it's a different person. But was it the training program wasn't good enough? Was it that this person, for some reason, had the motivation to follow it, or whatever was going on, and this person didn't? And it's like, well, you know, I want to get clients that just do what I say. Elon Musk talks about this. He says that you get paid in proportion with the problems that you solve. Mm-hmm. So you get paid in proportion with the problems you solve. One thing that happened to me is when I started charging more and more, I was in a gym and I was charging about $1,500 a month top price at that time. So it's about £1,000 a month, which was a lot of money. Most other people in the gym were probably charging, I was doing it monthly. Most people charging like $75 a session. I was just like, fuck that shit. And I charge more than everyone else in there. So you kind of, people think you must in some way be better. Hopefully you are. And then when I started moving outside of my little gym and started actually like becoming a bit more well known, I started getting a lot of people coming to me saying things like, I've tried everywhere else, or if it doesn't work with you, I've got no idea what I'm going to do. And part of that was positioning. Part of that was just, I knew how to position myself as the expert. Part of it was just price point as well. I was charging $3,000 a month for my personal training. And that went up at one point. The last personal training client I had was about $5,000 a month, which sounds ridiculous, I know. But I solved his problems and no other fitness coach had ever been able to do it. And it's like, that's why I could charge what I did, because I was a really fucking good coach. And the reason I got him results is because I got into his head. And I got into his head with an understanding of some of the things I learned from DeMartini, for instance, or who's a, I guess you'd probably just call him a mindset coach or whatever you want to call him. He's a bit like Tony Robbins in some way. And I started to understand that it was all up here. The psychology of change is way, way, way more important than the reps and the macros. The problem is not that your client does 12 reps instead of 10, or the problem is not that your client doesn't know how to deadlift, and you teach him that. By the way, I love teaching people to train properly, but the reason that they got fat is not because they didn't deadlift. The reason they got fat is because they ate too much and they didn't work out enough. And so what we've tried to do is create like we're going to go through today, 12-week blueprint. And that's probably me going out and, first of all, jumping online before most people even knew it was a thing.
Back in the Excel days, this was.
Mate, it was proper back in the day. It was like, I wasn't dial-up really, but you know.
No dial-up sounds at the start.
It was time ago. And first of all, it was like just the realization that I want to do 12-week transformations. I'm going to do 12-week transformations because I realized that they were by far the best. The difference between, say, online and personal training, and lots of personal trainers will say that personal training is a results-based business. It is, but it can also not be. So if that's a doubt, ask yourself, have you got any clients that have been with you for more than a year and not lost any weight? Yeah.
I think a lot of people have had that.
Yeah, I have lost quite a bit of weight at the beginning and then they stop losing weight. So what we can accept at that point is that personal training has lots of other benefits, which is great. Online coaching, and I mean online coaching, the higher value stuff, It is results based, and that's it. It's not rent a friend. It's not I got a bit stronger. It's not I get out of the office. It's quite naked actually. It's like it's results based, which is good, and in the way it's not so good because you can't hide behind. I talked about the guy earlier in the program. He could get to the end of 6 months or 12 months with his client and nothing's happened, and no one really says anything. Everyone hides. When it's online, you're naked, and it's like it's all about the results. So someone spends good money with you, they expect to have a system, or they expect to experience something where they see a transformation. And I just was like, I was so much more motivated to want to train my clients when week by week I'm like, we do our check-ins and they've lost a couple of pounds, or week by week I'm literally seeing the difference with the photos that they bring every 2 weeks. I'm like, fuck, I'm getting more excited than probably, well, as excited as them. So I realized early on that when you go online for the higher value stuff, a 12-week transformation is the best way of doing it. Now, I want to start there. I know one of the reasons why a lot of marketers will tell you different is because they look at this from a marketing perspective. I look at it from a coaching perspective. I look at it from what I enjoy doing and what I know is right for my clients. 12-week transformations, if you want to do that stuff, which some people don't, by the way, and that's cool. But if you want to see weight loss results with your clients, and that's what 95% of the industry needs and wants. Of course, they get all the other stuff, by the way. They get the mindset, they get the health, they get all of that. But the first thing they need to do is lose weight and believe that they can. It creates an environment where you will get much, much, much better results. So if you can get much better results, not in some crazy way, but much better results in a short amount of time, you can just charge more. So I realized that early on. The problem with me when I first started is that I just made it up as I went. I had done already done a lot of sort of reading and learning into behavior change and the mindset that goes with that. So I started then basically at one point starting putting this 12-week blueprint together. And it was just me systemizing what I was doing with my clients. And then every time I kind of had a new realization, it's like, that's what I need to do. Then the thing that happens is when you start teaching people stuff, you know this, Ash, you really need to not only understand it, you need to understand it at a new level. And so then I'm running my dozens of clients through it. Then all of my clients are then getting run through it. And then each time there's new updates, even the latest update, which we put in more recently, which if someone's got the blueprint already and they're like, Tim, I've got it, there is some new stuff. Yeah, it is. And I think this is a really fucking good, an amazingly good tool to help trainers understand why we do what we do, but also for you to be able to explain to your clients why they're doing what they do, and they get it in their mind. And just quickly, what I mean is the 3 phases that we've created. It was always there, but we never kind of actually specifically put it in there. Do you want to just bring it up quickly, Ash?
Yeah. Get the screen share on.
And by the way, Ash, if there's any questions.
Yeah, cool. Just quickly, guys, I think there's quite a few people on at the moment. But if you want to ask any questions as we go, please just ask away, drop it into the comments.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to download this as well, I'll put the link in the comments once we're done.
So if you look at how people systemize things, what they do is you look at, McDonald's. McDonald's basically takes something which they actually, I don't know if they still state this, but basically they want the lowest common denominator to be able to operate their system. That's how they systemized what they did, which basically means that they wanted like the slowest kid in class to be able to work their system, because in the end that means that they can pay them less. So I'm not saying that, obviously I'm not saying that anyone, what I'm saying is like, what I've tried to do is create a system where it's simple to understand. Now, it might be that there's things that people are like, okay, I don't get this, I don't get that. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Obviously, there's a lot more training that goes in this, in my program and that. But there's a couple of things that I just want to highlight, the new things that I just talked about now. And that's the 3 phases. If you see at the top, there's the diagnostic phase, the foundation phase. And then if you squeeze over a bit.
There we go.
And the acceleration phase.
So we're looking up here.
And the reason I specifically put that is that one thing that happens with all trainers is that they overwhelm their clients. In fact, the guy who I was talking about, Casper, said that the 2 people that ghosted him, what he realized is in week 1, because he was trying to so impress his clients, he sent them so much stuff in week 1 that basically they had to read a welcome. I've done it as well, by the way. A welcome document, brochure, fucking book, encyclopedia, basically. And then they had so much stuff to arrive on the first call. And he jokingly basically said, like, no wonder they probably arrived at the first call going, what have I even done here? Like, your clients aren't you. So one of the key fundamentals of coaching is something called that we use is something called a Kaizen approach. And Kaizen is basically, it's like a Japanese thing, which really looks at, like, the other way of looking at it is 2 to 3 things each week. So Kaizen suggests that you choose something that moves the lever as much as possible. That's how I look at it. Choose 2 to 3 things that you can change in someone's habits in the first week that are as easy to implement and disrupt them as little as possible, but give you the most amount of outcome from that. So does that make sense, Ash?
Yeah, definitely. There's actually an interesting book called The One Thing, I think it is. It talks basically that's the same thing, which is worth checking out.
This is probably where it came from, actually. So the reason I do it is there's another reason that and we can probably go into a bit deeper if people want us to. One of the things as a coach that you need to be aware of is something called self-image. It's basically how people see themselves. You could say it's how people see themselves, and then how they see themselves in the world and how they perceive themselves to be. So people who are overweight and fat perceive themselves to be overweight and fat. It's quite deeply built into them. So it's if you look at, say, people who are, by the way, I grew up on a council estate, well, not a council estate, in a council house, and not with much money, a single mum and all that. There's one of the reasons why poor people are poor is because they have a self-image of someone who is poor. And if you hear the sort of stories of, like, lottery winners who win all that money, and yet 3 years later they've spanked $9 million on cocaine and cars and shit. Part of the reason why that happens is because they actually perceive themselves subconsciously as someone who is poor, and it doesn't feel right for them to be wealthy. So if you read it, you can Google this stuff, and it's really interesting. DeMartini talks about this a lot. It's like one of the things we need to do in the program is shift their self-image, shift how they talk to themselves and how they identify with themselves. So all I want in week 1 is the Kaizen approach, but really what I'm also doing is I just want them to be able to turn up to week 2 having achieved the goals that I've set them. I almost don't care what those are. I almost don't care what they are. All I want them to do is just be able to turn up, because they basically see themselves as failures. And if you look at self-image, anything that then supports their beliefs about themselves, they will overblow. They could do like 20 things well that week, and one thing's a failure, and they will pick up on the thing that's a failure. So what we want to do is we've set really simple, small goals, and 2 or 3, and I let them choose them, and I want them to do it, and I just want them to turn up the next week and say that I did it. And to be honest, like, one of the reasons why Fit Pros won't do this is because they think they need to justify the high charges. They don't. You don't at all. Because the cool thing about when you do this is actually they usually lose a couple of pounds just because of these small changes they've made. So what I do then, this is how that blueprint works. It's the what and the how, and I'll go through the why. That's a bit more complicated at some point. Yeah. But the what and the how there is like, what am I doing training activity? Right, week 1, I just want them to train more than last week. That's literally all I care about. I just want them to train more than last week. I let them decide that. I have that conversation with them on a coaching call. The other thing that I want them to do is I want them to make 2 food choices, and I usually include one of those as their breakfast. The reason I always start with breakfast is because breakfast is a meal that generally most people eat the same anyway. It's like, I don't know if I want to eat that. What do you eat at the moment? Toast. How many days a week? Well, every day. It's like, well, make your fucking mind up. Like, so it's like most people eat the same thing for breakfast. So it's really easy to change. And so the other thing that I'm doing there tracking is aims and photos. So the what is the thing above, and the how is how do I track that or change that? So if you see there, it says nutrition, two food choices included breakfast. I do that by just asking for food photos of their breakfast. That's all I want from them. So I do the 2 to 3, train more than last week. I do that in a conversation with them. And I do that and I go something like this. So I would sit there and I would have, I said, how would I say it? Tell me over the last 3, look, and then I would always douse it with some empathy because I don't want them to feel bad. And I say, look, tell me over the last 3 to 6 months, or by the way, it's totally cool, whatever you say here. Like, that's why we're working together. Okay, so it's really cool. How many times would you say that you've trained on average per week for the last 3 months? Most of the time with online clients, they'll say big fat 0. And even if they say 5 to you, they're either lying or what do you think is then
full of shit.
Either let's say that they change 4 times a week.
Yeah, it just depends on it. Like they're either lying or they're delusional about what they're doing, which happens as well. Or from a technical point of view, they're overeating. Or
end of story. So if they are training 4 times a week, the problem is not getting them to train harder or more complicated. They're just eating too much. It's a much bigger lever. Don't try, and again, if you think about Kaizen, don't try and get like 0.1 from getting them to do 12 reps instead of 10 or getting them to deadlift instead of leg press. Like, figure out why, get detective. Okay, why is this person still 2 stone overweight when they train 4 times a week and they have been for the last 6 months? Shit, they're eating too much. Yeah. So if they say, 4 times a week and I believe them, I'm just like, cool, I'll leave it there. I don't even need to have them. Cool, I just want you to stay with that. Yeah. Now, most of the time they'll be like, they might say 1. They're a bit coy, which is why I really douse it with a lot of empathy. But generally speaking, I'll be like, okay, they say something like, I haven't really. I say, cool, look, can you see that it would be useful if we can just, this first week, let's just aim to get you more active than you were last week. Is that cool? Yes. Could you see why we'd do that? Yes. Okay. How many times do you want to train this week? So one of the principles of the internship that I run, we have 9 big coaching principles, and one of them is questions are the answers. So what you'll see is that I ask questions all the time. I can tell them, but you can basically ask questions, and when people are asked and they make the decision, they're much more likely to do it. So they believe it's their idea. Subconsciously, they're much more likely to do it. This is based in science. Like, it's not me just making it up. So I'll say, like, how many times do you want to train this week? And what do you think most people say, Ash?
Most people will generally go for a higher number than what they really want to do.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I found.
Sometimes people are like 5 and I like, okay, all right. And then it's my job as a coach to go, now I'm not going to say, no, that's stupid, but I use questions again. I say, look, awesome. Like, I'm really glad that that's where you're aiming for, but can you see, have you ever heard the term like run before you can walk, or, have you, and I would know a lot about them by this point. So I would have had a sales conversation with them. Do you remember in the sales conversation, we talked about the fact that you sometimes are an all or nothing? And they'll look all coy and I go, so look, I want this to be like something that you said to me, you want this to be something that you can do for the long term. Is that still right? Yes. Cool. Like, would you want to have to train 5 times a week to get where you want to get to forever? And they were, no. I'm like, okay, so how many times do you want to train this week that you know that for 90% probability you can do that going forward? And they'll normally then temper themselves. And I don't care, as long as I usually think that if it's 2 to 3 times, that's ideal. To be honest, sometimes if it's 1, I'll be fine with that. So cool. So that's cool, because a lot of the movements you make in the first few weeks in the diagnostic phase are from dietary intervention.
It's just got to be better than before, hasn't it?
Exactly. So that's all it is. It's just train more than they did last week. So then I'll be like, okay, cool. What do you enjoy? What trainers tend to do at this point is they send them a training program. None of my clients get a training program in the diagnostic phase. So the reason I called it a diagnostic phase is it's a bit like, imagine going into a doctor's A doctor doesn't just go, oh, and ask you one question and then give you like pills. There's a diagnostic part here. You want to understand your client and them. And the other reason, by the way, that this is super cool is that if you've not trained people online before, you know, going into it, when someone sells their first program with me, they know that they've got space to not have to really do that much with the clients. So we build this in, by the way, me and Ash, this is the system that we build in for my clients. So when they get a client, they basically got a system to onboard them. But it just feels like it feels like you can go out and make sales because you know there's something that the clients are going to experience. And it also gives you a bit of time to just sort of like, okay, how do I start to understand this client? Oh, panic. What do I send them? You don't need to. Like, none of my clients get any training program. And if I say within the first 2 weeks, for me personally, it was a lot longer than that. But I know some people want to, but you don't need to give them complexity. It shouldn't be complex because you will lose your clients. Go on.
I'd say in essence, you can pretty much, with the right question, you can kind of give them what they want and what they need at the same time. Yeah. Like, I don't know people that have charged, a lot of money for their programs and literally just said, go and do a Davina McCall DVD.
Dude, you're talking to him.
Yeah, well, yeah, it might be you actually that said that. Actually, it could have been, yeah.
It was.
I couldn't remember who it was I spoke to.
Yeah, it was.
I couldn't remember who it was I spoke to about it. I've seen people do the same again with just telling people to be more active the day after next. I've had people just say, go for a walk, with the dog.
What we have to understand is, like, a lot of people who are in the fitness industry in gyms really struggle with this because what their perception is, it's like being in a vegan restaurant and wondering, why does the whole world eat fucking soy and tofu shit? It's like, no, the whole world doesn't do stupid things like that. They eat steak and burgers and good stuff and like eat cheese and shit like that. Because actually in the normal world, that's what people do. It's like in the gym, which is in the UK, about 5% of people regularly go to the gym. That's not the marketplace that you necessarily need to be basing your stuff on. The marketplace you need to be basing your stuff on is the 95% of other people. So yes, people in the gym, yes, okay, we get it. But outside of the gym, most of them don't do anything. They don't expect a training program. You just think that you need to give it to them to justify. You don't. So
it's almost like being ingrained in this from kind of PT school, hasn't it? It's like, this is what you learn, this is what you do, this is what you want to
do. That is what you do. You are a personal trainer. You teach people how to exercise. A transformation coach doesn't do that. It's a small part of what they do. Now, I do want to just give a caveat to people who are out there like wanking off about like how complex and amazing their programs are. Like, if you scroll along towards the end, Ash.
Cool. I've got a quick question. I've got a question that's coming as well, but we can do it after this bit if you like.
Let me just finish this and then we'll do the question. So one of the things that I really love about doing this is you can see there's the foundation phase. In the foundation phase, on a bigger picture, what I'm doing is I'm building their confidence. Probably a good way of putting it. What I'm really doing is I'm changing their self-image. I'm changing their belief in themselves. I'm taking them from someone who just beats themselves up, has real negative self-talk, to someone who actually starts to think, you know what, I can do this. You know what, I feel more confident, step by step. And when I start to do this, I can start getting them to do hard. I did a lot of work with brides. I had my bridal clients by week towards the end doing more complex nutrition stuff than most of the best fucking coaches out there, because I had the ability to learn about step by step. One of the things that when often fit pros send programs to their clients and their clients get results, they think that the client has followed that program to the letter. Often they haven't. They don't tell you. They're not following your programs if you're doing complex macros. I find that hard. They're not doing it. They don't tell you, by the way, because they don't need to, because they're getting results. And you don't need to know. You're like, they're getting results. But probably the reason they're getting results is not because of the complexity of your macro splits and all that. It's actually probably just the fact that they're in a calorie deficit. And they're just moving more and eating less. Yeah. So the really cool thing about this is that as you build that foundation, you turn them into people that believe in themselves. It's like the best example sometimes I give to fit pros. It's like we can't understand why fitness clients don't do it. It's easy for us. What's the matter with them? Why can't they fucking do it? Tell them, do it. Like, are they stupid? Now, most fit pros don't say that, but in the end, in the back of their mind, this is a little bit like what they're thinking. And I could say exactly the same thing to everyone I mentor. What's the fucking matter with you? Why can't you do it? I've done it. It's easy. And it's like, well, that's not true. It's really hard for your clients. So as you start changing their belief systems, you start showing them, you know what? And I say things like, one of the things I do at the bottom is there's something there, which is, these are the coaching models, which we'll come on to. There's one which is who are you, and one is who you'll become. A simple coaching, it's more than a principle, Ash, actually. It's like, it's a foundation of coaching is, where are you? Where do you want to get to? What stops you getting from A, B, where are you? Where do you want to get to? What stops you from getting A to B? How can we overcome that? And so those two things are like, who are you? Where are you? Who will you become? That who will you become is the person they want to become to start being this fitness person.
People underestimate how important those bits are. It's almost like, it's like reading the map, isn't it? Like, you can never navigate yourself anywhere unless you actually know where you are in the first place and where you want to go to. Otherwise, everything else is irrelevant.
You can't put, your GPS doesn't work if it doesn't know where you are now.
No.
And also, the other thing that you also need to do is you do need to know. So one of the things there that I do is I get them to answer questions, and then I get them to write a story about the person that they want to become. It's in the first person. It describes themselves. So how do you want to eat? So the version of you, the ideal version of you, I ask them a question, and this is written. It's like, how do you want to eat? How do you exercise? How does your body look? How does your body feel? What do you feel about your body? How does it aid you? Like, I can't remember exactly, something about physically. What does it allow you to do? What do you do with habits? What do you do with sleep? What do you do with stress? How do you, and the best one is like, how do you eat? No one has ever written anything but green, fresh, healthy, organic. Sometimes they say things like, oh, I'd like to be able to have a treat. So now we know where we want to move that person towards. We know the actions of that person. They can start saying the actions of me as the healthy version of who I want to be is someone who eats, healthy meals, but I allow myself a bit of a treat every now and then. So we've got those two things. One of the things that I do in that foundation phase is I start to feed back to them about which I sometimes, and there's a bit of an art to this, but sometimes it's like, I'll put those two face to face and I'll screen share them and I'll say, which one are you nearer? And the look on someone's face when they realize that they're nearer to the person that they want to become than the person that they used to be, this is starting to change how they see themselves. So within that foundation phase, a key thing for me is I'm trying to change their self-image. I'm trying to get them, again, if you look at it just a little bit more, a couple of levels above that, I'm just trying to get them to change their habits. And by the end of the foundation phase, I've often really done a lot of that. I used to do this with brides. I'd turn them into people that had basically just been on their sofa to, like, I don't know, doing like this back in the day, by the way, so don't judge me, but like fasted cardio. I used to be a bit of a Poliquin man, so stupid things like meat and nuts breakfast. And my clients are actually doing this, right? But the thing is now, I'll get my clients to track their food accurately, because, by the way, and we might talk about that quickly, if your clients are telling you that they're tracking food and they're not losing weight and they're in a deficit, they're lying to you, or they're lying to themselves, or both. So I'll give that as an example in a minute. Like, I'm able to really start going to town in that acceleration phase. So I know there's a lot of guys in PTD who really love complicated programs for their client. They love geeking out. They love all that understanding. If you fundamentally learn how to change someone's behavior, what behavior change coaching is, you will be able to use all of that study that you've done. Like, I actually think what we teach is the most incredible, what's the word? When something matches something, it matches. Like, there's a better word there.
Cohesive?
Yeah, it's like, I think that if you've someone who's done a lot of like sort of more complicated nutrition stuff, the biggest thing that you could do is go and learn behavior change. And I know they teach it in some of these really cool courses, but really even at a deeper level, like they only go so far with like behavior change stuff from what I've seen, which is right because that's not what they teach. But if you've done some stuff, like we get a lot of people that have done things like PN, and PN is great. I fucking love it. But I also think that if you've done a lot of that stuff, when you truly really engage yourself and start digging into behavior change, everything that you learn, you can actually start to help your clients implement it so much more. So is that you or my battery?
Probably yours. I'm plugged into everything.
All right. One minute.
No worries.
You can sing us a song, Ash.
I'll sing you a song whilst I'm talking about this. Yeah, you don't want to hear my singing. You definitely don't want to hear my singing. I'll tell you what, while she's sorting that out to me, I'm going to actually read out. Can you hear what I'm saying? I'm sure you can probably hear what I'm saying. Remember, guys, if you do have any questions whatsoever, let us know. I know Ray. Oh, hi, Ray. Nice to see you on here. I know you said you're going to try and make it, which is cool. I've got your question on here, so I'll ask Tim when he comes back about that. The synergy. I love that as well. Ross is on with us at the moment. Answer's here. Philippe's here. Paul's here. Joe's here. Erin's here. Sarah's here. Another Paul's here. Mike and Trevor's here.
My bad.
Yeah, no worries. Battery's plugged in now.
All right, I'm back. All right, so
no organised. I was going to just say that Ray's mentioned a question.
Yeah, go on. Shoot.
Okay. It's saying, how do you feel about sending assessments during the diagnostic phase, like 3 movements disguised as assessments? I know what he's talking about because it's one of my clients. But it's just the idea that he has an assessment, which is a movement assessment basically, but he just gets people to complete 3 basic movements when they first join up. So he can make an informed decision.
On what?
I don't actually know. I'm not actually asking the question yet because I've only just seen the movements he wants to put through. So, Ray, do you want to tell us what's the decisions? I don't know where Tim's going with this, but what are these actually for, the assessments? And I think I know where Tim's going with this because it's a conversation I have with a lot of people.
It is. And I want to first start saying that I spent about $20,000 on a course called GIFT, which is basically teaching personal trainers and osteopaths like quite in-depth movement stuff. Like not just a little bit of like go and buy the functional movement screen. It's like a real understanding of how the human body works. And I loved it. But what I also realized after that is that I love coaching more. Me personally, I have much more of an interest in what goes on in the mind than necessarily how the body works. So it's not that I don't care about it. I do. I think that one of the reasons why that got really big, and by the way, I'm not talking to Ray, I'm just talking to everyone, I will answer Ray's questions specifically, is because it kind of became a bit of a trend in the industry. And if you're, I think sometimes what fit pros end up doing is they want to complicate things because they enjoy doing it. So they also want to complicate things because they feel like they're really adding value to stand out. And by the way, you do. But I don't necessarily suggest that if your niche or what you're trying to do is based around something like performance or injury or rehab, then I'm not the person that's necessarily the best person to advise. I also, to a certain extent, feel that online doesn't necessarily marry the best to that. Now, someone might know lots more than me about it, and I would bow down to them and respect them if they did. I could probably learn something. But personally, I don't feel that it marries the best to online. So I would always wonder why someone wants to do that. Yeah. One of the things that I will move to, though, is I look at exercise selection in risk reward. Yeah. So do I get my clients to deadlift? Do I love deadlifts? And would I love to train every client I ever had to deadlift? Of course I would. But is the problem of what they're experiencing, which for what we do is a mindset and a body transformation, is the problem, did they get fat because they didn't deadlift? No. So I use, when I do train and give programs, I use a very much risk reward. Do I want to get my clients to back squat? Of course I do. Do I feel like it's the right place to do it in a 12-week transformation? It depends on what they've done in the past. So it depends where they are. I certainly wouldn't be doing it anywhere near the beginning. So would I be better off giving someone, I'll give you an example, would I be better off giving someone a split squat than a back squat, like a normal back squat? Yes. Anyone can do a split squat. You're way less likely to cause any problems for someone than you are in a back squat, because there's a lot of, would I give, say, kettlebell swings for an online program? Probably not, no. Do I love kettlebells? Yes. But there are other metabolic things that you could do with people that are way less likely to cause any problems. Yes. So it's not something that I'm necessarily the expert at. I would wonder why someone would want to do it. And to be honest, I know that me and Tim have talked about this and we've talked about it before. I'm not sure if they're not injured, which I would know in the sales call. I've turned clients down before who are injured or have proper injury problems. And I've said, look, I'm not right for you. Or something that you can do is I've made sure that they've gone away and got someone else to help them. And while that physio or whoever it is helping them, or even a trainer, by the way, I'll work with them then. And I work with them more on, you can actually achieve weight loss for people, which is probably the biggest health marker that you could ever change in anyone at the beginning anyway, without really training them aggressively anyway. To be honest, most of it is done through, a lot of it is done through nutrition. So it's not the best answer, but hopefully it is the answer that I can give.
Yeah, he has come back with a response. So I also kind of know who Ray's clients are. I understand a little bit why he's doing this process.
What's his surname to begin with?
Great, it's G.
Oh, no, it's someone different then. Okay,
right.
go on.
But yeah, it's just so that it's basically the whole point of the assessment is a way to lead them to get better. And basically what it's trying to do is, in essence, not make them fail, but show them that something is tricky to do, and that they're going to do something. They're going to use that as a checkpoint to say they've actually got better at something and become stronger. And a lot of it's more to do with, from Ray's point of view, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, I could be completely wrong here, but I think this is right. It's more to do about the psychology behind doing something better.
Well, cool. So then I would choose something else.
Yeah.
We use, and I love it. I think it's awesome what he's doing, by the way.
Yeah.
Like what we use is, there's something that I use a lot and I teach called feedback loops. Mm-hmm. So a feedback loop is, you've done this thing. Can you see? Yes. How do you feel about the thing you've done? I feel good. What can you learn going forward? Oh my God, yes, I can see that. So lots of people can have the same result, but they're not aware of the fact that they've had the same result. So what I mean by that is I would do something like, we do a health scorecard. So at the beginning of the program, we get them to mark themselves out of 10 on certain things, about 8 or 9 different things. And basically what I do then is in week, and this is more of a numerical way of doing the thing that I just talked about. What Ray's saying is, where are you now? Where do you want to get? Where do you get to? I then just check in with that. I did some, one of the free courses that I do is basically it's the health scorecard. And I would get them to mark themselves in, say, week 3 about where are they? So they said, with like strength. It's more the way they feel about it that's the important thing. And then I get them to do it again in, say, week 3, 6, 9. And I just feed them back, like, what do you think about the fact that you've made so much progress? So I would figure something else out more around the psychology of what they're doing, necessarily than the specific movement pattern. I think that's what he's saying. One of the things, I don't know how much time we've got to go in this, but I'll go for it. One of the things that we do in there, so if you see the 4-week, if you scroll back that way to the beginning. Okay. So one of the things that I do when I first actually start tracking, training, I see it says training diary document. What I do is I do something where I buy them a heart rate monitor and I ask them to wear it 1 week. And basically by asking someone, one of the fundamentals of the principles of the internship is what gets measured, gets managed. It was a guy called Peter Drucker, who was probably the most famous operations guy ever. And he said that if you want to sort your spending out, simply get a pen and paper and write everything that you spend for 1 week. See how it changes your behaviors. Because it's exactly what I did. I used to drink 3 Starbucks a day. And by day 2 of actually writing it down, Nothing had changed apart from I'd written it down. I was like, I'm not going to drink £9 worth of coffee a day again.
I used to do it with my clients all the time. Even if someone said to me, I want a quick way of just changing, they want to lose a bit of weight or feel a bit better. I say, I tell you what, just take some photos of your meals for next week and or write down what you're eating for a week. Never tell them anything. But by the end of like 2-3 weeks, they've lost a few pounds because
you don't need to. It's like
they're aware of it.
Yeah, so it just brings an awareness to it. So one of the things that I do in this week is the first thing that I do when I'm looking at their training. But obviously I have to give them some guidance if they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, I want you to wear this heart rate monitor, and I simply want you to write down this week how many calories you burn each training session. Now, I'm well aware that is that the best way of measuring outcomes from training? Of course it's not. Like you could say, well, someone would burn more calories on a heart rate monitor from running than they would from lifting weights. And we all know lifting weights is more beneficial for the long run, blah, blah, blah. We all know that, right? But I still, by asking them to just simply wear a heart rate monitor and track how many calories they're burning, I'm not telling them anything, I'm just saying track it, they will automatically train harder because they're looking down. Clients are motivated, whether we like it or not, by calories burnt in exercise. You can try and educate them as much as you want to say it doesn't matter. It doesn't, we know, or it's, it's vague. But I can tell you now, there's a reason why fitness clients go to those training classes that say burn 600 calories in half an hour. My
zone classes. I'll tell you what, you see it at the gym quite a lot, I think, with Fitbits and these tools like that. The amount of people there are absolutely gutted if they don't wear their Fitbit when they do a workout. It's like you can see it. It didn't happen. It means so much to them just to track it and just to
so in week one, what I do, and Ray could try this. In week one, I say to them, and this is a feedback loop, it's a bit more in-depth stuff that we do. I ask them to just write it down. And then when they come afterwards, I know they're going to have trained harder that week. So I ask them, how hard do you think you trained last week? And they would always say something like 7 because they feel like they've trained harder. I'll get my clients to train harder than they've ever trained in their life without me standing next to them, which the difference between it being intrinsic and extrinsic is the difference between they're doing it because they want to do it and because it's come from inside of them, not me standing over them saying, do another burpee. So I then say to them, okay, cool. Now I know that really they trained a 2 out of 10. There's such a difference between what's called the psychological threshold and the actual physiological threshold. So they'll say something like 7. I'll be like, okay, cool. Are you up for something this week? And they'll be like, they were super motivated at this point. And be like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, we're going to beat those calories burnt by 10. You up for it? Yes. I want you to do it though. And I want you to do it in the same amount of time that you spent training this week though. So you're not just allowed to train for 10% extra. I want you to push yourself harder. Do you think you can do that? It's like a fire up their ass. So they're like, yeah, I can do that. And they come back next week and they're like, oh my God, we look at it and they've done it. And I just note this down on a Word document, by the way. It's nothing more complicated than that. And you imagine them at the end of their training session going and looking at the week before going, oh, last week I burnt 200. Oh, I did 220. Imagine they're on that treadmill or whatever they're doing and then, oh, I can't be asked, which is what they normally do when you're training people online. They're like, oh, I want to beat it. I want to beat it. Most people are goal driven. And so then what they'll beat it always in week 1. And they'll come back and sometimes they smash it by like 20%. So then I'll ask them, I'm like, how hard do you think you trained this week? And they'll say something like, oh, fucking hell, it's like an 8. And I was like, okay. How hard do you think you trained last week now with what you know? They'll always change their perception. They'll go, oh yeah, you know what? It was a 6 actually. I thought it was because their perception is totally out of whack. Okay, guess what? And I'll say, right, we're going to do it again. And they're excited and nervous and they'll go and do it again. They will beat it again by 10%. And then the next time I'm saying, what's this starting to tell you? And there's what's called levels of learning. I'm like, what's this starting to tell you? And what they're starting to realize now is that their perception is totally whack. Because they'll then go, oh, yeah. I'll say, you remember last week that you thought you were training an 8? What were you? And then I usually finish it off by saying this. I'll say, look, do you mind if I just tell you something? Are you okay? And they'll say, yes. I'm asking for permission. I'll say, you're training at a 4 out of 10. They'll believe me now, by the way. And then they start to realize that their perception of what they can achieve is very different to what they can actually go and achieve. I'm like, we've got a lot. I want them to know that they're not training hard, but I have to do it in the right way. So by the end of those 3 weeks, your client's mindset's totally changed on what they can achieve. Totally.
That's cool. Sorry, I was reading a message that popped up there too.
Right. We're getting so look, I want to bring it back to a couple of things on here. So you should be able to see, like, if I go through how, in fact, do you want to open the PTD thing and we'll show them what's in there?
Yeah.
I want to go through some of the basic stuff at first.
Just quickly before we go into this, I'll just drop a little question that's just come in. It's from Ray again. It said, Tim, would you recommend tracking early or waiting a few weeks?
What?
Well, basically, it goes on to say, I offer a 7-day program to essentially hook you up with sleep, food, and a habit tracker. So this is built into the software like a standard one built into the software.
Is it a free one?
It's a free one, yeah. You get a baseline, and then the idea is after they pay, he helps them get better from that. It's just a free 7-day program that moves them onto from that.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, that's what he's asking.
Would I track what? Sorry, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's the same it's tracking things like sleep, food, and the habit tracker, which basically takes photos. I know the program, so like it helps, but like his program is getting them to track through video, but not video, through pictures. So some photos of foods. Be aware of sleep, track sleep or use a tracker, and like basic habits to get them to check into. But these habits are more to do with not necessarily nutrition habits. They're more to do with like creating space around yourself, the psyche and the mental side of it, things like
that. Look, I'm down with everything that he's doing, by the way. I think it's awesome. And again, I kind of just need to read between the lines a bit.
I'll try not to say too much about his program, that's all.
Everyone else can come. So one of the things that when you're doing like free challenges, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to just give them what we call like a meaningful win. And a meaningful win, obviously, the aim is for them to, I don't know if it's carry on or sign up or however it works. When you do free challenges, what you're trying to do is like give them a meaningful win. What we think is, and I had to work really hard to do this. When I first started mentoring people, a meaningful win was go and fucking make 10 grand. I had to realize that just because that was me doesn't mean that's where everyone is. A meaningful win for people in my program is that they get their first client. And by the way, that sounds really like a bit like I'm a bit of a dickhead. But I tell you the reason is because at the time I was getting clients paying me, $18,000 for personal training for like 16 weeks. So jumping online, for me, it was like, in my brain, I needed to make the same amount of money, if not more, to even make it worth my while. Whereas that's because I worked in London and in Mayfair. Like it's
different mentality there, isn't it?
Totally, exactly. So let's say I was someone who worked in a place where I was charging £25 an hour for personal training. Like a fucking meaningful win for me, if I went into someone's program, would be to sell a online program for 500 quid. I'm like, what? So I can like basically sit on my laptop and just do this shit and talk to my clients and I get paid all that money. So I've really worked hard on what a meaningful win is for people. In the program, I don't know, but my thoughts are that what are we trying to do to prove to them that they should stay on? I don't know because I'm not seeing it. It feels to me like there's too many things to track. It's like if the aim is to give them a meaningful win, it's basically like an aha moment, an insight. That is normally enough. What you might find is there's too many things being tracked. So almost like it gets a bit swallowed up. And how many people, if you're doing this as a marketer with free challenges, what you'd really measure is like how many people are starting, where do they fall off, how many people see the offer, and how many people carry on. So what I've found, and by the way, I did this as well. We ran a free challenge and we put about 3-4 too many steps into it. The one we do now is just one meaningful win. We used to do 2 steps. What we realized is that it was too much for people. It wasn't where they were. So it depends on what the outcome is from the program and what you want, what type of clients you want. But I might really take that back because it feels to me like there's too much going on there, but I don't know. Ash?
Yeah, I mean, there's, admittedly, compared to when I first chatted with Ray about his program, there was a lot more than what's in there now. And we have scaled it back quite a bit. I don't think it's massively too much that's in there. The tracking's simple to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's going to come down to feedback from clients now. I think we're in for a quick setup. The whole premise, though, which just always makes me question about is like Ray's actually said on the chat, he's actually said it. He's posted who he works with now, so I'll say it. He works with people who've got chronic illness, and the whole idea is that the chronic illness, types of chronic illness they have, means that they feel like they have no time, and the idea is to help bring them time back, to help them feel better, healthier, all that kind of stuff.
So much of that is going to be just an awareness. I don't even know how much tracking is.
No, most of the stuff in there is, we're saying tracking, most of it is awareness stuff. So it's like photos of the food you're eating. Like think about when people do eat a little bit, and just some very basic. When I say habits, they're more habits about trying to get you sleeping. And he has this. Again, I'm not saying what it is because it's his thing in his launch at the moment. Unless he wants to post it. If Ray wants to post it, I'll tell you what it is. But he has this model that does work. I think is a really clever model that he's going to try and build on. And the old Ursula I can share you. It's called the Thrive model. And this idea of what he's tried to do within the 7 days is have one of each parts of this model just demonstrated within this free 7 days, so that people can see this little snippet about what each letter stands for.
Nice.
And the idea at the end of it, if they can see that, they can then move on to the next package. However, the end of this package is not like say my programs where we'd try and automate them into it. They are getting onto a call to have a chat, see if they are the right fit, and it is a more high ticket program. I think.
So it's more like a 5-day challenge-y type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and tracking is awareness, so it should be okay.
Yeah, I think the main thing is the awareness. Things like, I would also be, if I was doing that, I would also want them to, and again, without having a conversation directly, one of the things that might happen is that for people to buy something, they need to understand the situation that they're in, which is the awareness. I teach a 6-box selling system, which is nothing brand new, but it's like, I know that my clients have to, on the phone call, on the sales call, and so this could be the same, it's a conversion environment. They have to understand the pain that their situation they're in. I don't mean physical pain, although it could be. They have to be massively connected to that because most people are so far away from the reality of their actual situation. So we want them to see that, but we have to have them see like promised land. They have to see future. If they've not been able to see future, they probably won't, they're less likely to buy. The reason I say that was specifically is people that have got chronic illness, from my experience of doing a functional medicine business, they've had it for a while. They don't believe there's a way out. They've lost their belief that anything can change. I would, in somewhere in that 7 days, I would want to paint a picture or have something that paints a picture of where they would want to get to. Because without that, you're just talking about where they are now, which they already know, but they need to know more, and it's visceral. They need to know what would be ideal. So I might, in somewhere in there, ask them to do something freestyling. I might ask them to do something like what we do, which is the where do you want to be? I might ask them to write a day in the life of me, of where I would want to be. Like, what would be my ideal day? Because you want that person to say, and again, I'm freestyling, it might be like, I wake up and I don't have pain, or I wake up and my pain is 2 out of 10. I do this, I do that, I play with my kids. You can do that. Ash, I'm totally cool if you want to do this. If you want to send Ray the document, the where do you want to be, that would give you an idea of how to structure that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd be awesome. I can send it through to him. And he does have something very similar to that already, but it's in the main part of his flagship program. I think it's important. We could move that back, actually.
I think it's important, especially for chronic pain, because these people are they've been stuck so long, they probably just don't actually believe that they can do it. You need to have them. Here's the way I always look at it on a sales call. I need to believe that the person believes. I need to believe that they believe they can get there. And I mean by that is they need to be able to talk with some passion around where they want to be. And if they don't know where they want to be, then I need to help them see that as well. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, appreciate that. Anyway.
You want to go through what we've got then?
Oh, yeah. So what we've been doing with Tim, as it was kind of mentioned a few times, we've taken this kind of blueprint, if you like, this 12-week blueprint for his clients and his internship, which is the program that he's running, and help him set this up inside PT Distinction so that it, like Tim mentions, it allows the trainer or yourselves to onboard a client without any worries. The first steps and stuff happen automatically, but it also allows a lot of these things that you see inside here, especially down with the mindset coaching along the bottom and the tracking side, just to automatically happen, and then just give you the flexibility to very quickly adapt it for each client. Obviously, things like coaching calls and things like that will fall on different days, but it's very easy and simple to use. So we've taken this, and you might look at this thinking, oh, this looks like a lot of stuff on this blueprint. And Tim has been sat there talking about how it needs to be simple. But when you actually break it down, it is actually quite simple. And if we go into, this is actually one of, I'm sure she won't mind, but this is actually one of Tim's internship clients' account we've just set up for him. It's a brand new PTD account. It's good on Choose because there's not much in here to actually look at, which is cool. And if I go to the setup on here and we look at this particular group, and inside this group, you can kind of see how we've taken Tim's program and structured it out with inside PT Distinction. So things just drip feed out and they can be adaptive for each client once they've been added to the group. So you can see here the different videos, the different documents that Tim's been talking about already and that you see referred to in there. You can see a lot of these are coaching-based videos, and then they are, if I go into the emails that coincide with these particular parts of the blueprint. So all these.
Can we pause there quickly, Ash? Because in fact, go back one on here on PTD. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and where was it? Was it in the coaching one? Sorry. I just want to probably, like, in that diagnostic part, one of the things that I want to go through is like how simple it should be. It's a fundamental place that people go wrong. From the sale, look, if it's high value, by the way, unless you're a fucking outstanding. I mean, I've sold expensive programs via email. To be honest, I've sold them while sitting there watching Breaking Bad on my phone. But most people will do it on a sales conversation. So between the sales conversation and that person turning up for the first call, a lot of people have already overwhelmed and lost their clients. They don't know they're doing it. You said on this call, I've taken stuff out. Like, anyone who's watching, take more out. You're still giving them too much. And I know that because I used to do it, because I used to want to, like, justify what I was charging and stuff like that. Between the call, and this, anyone can do this, by the way. They can copy this and go and build this into PTD. What I want them to turn up on the first coaching call with is two things. 2-day food diary at the bottom, you could see there. So basically what you do is you tell them on the end of the sales call, this is what you can expect from me. You do it really quickly. And basically, I'm going to get an email. I just want you to do two things, bring two things to the first coaching call. Could you do that? Yes. Awesome. What we've got to understand is when someone's just bought something like this, they're nervous. We don't want to get them. We need to make sure and understand things like buyer's remorse. We don't want to get them feeling overwhelmed. If you ever get refunds and people don't, they don't turn up on the first calls, or they've spent money and they cancel within the first 2 weeks, you want to be looking at the fact that they've got overwhelmed or they've got buyer's remorse. They've got buyer's remorse often not because they shouldn't have done it, it's because they get scared. So the only two things that I want them to turn up onto the first call with is a 2-day food diary. The way that I've systemized that is that our guys, basically, we've shown them how to make the video. It gets sent out in the form of a video, which you, as the person who's watching this, can record. And then we also give them like an email template for people to send out. And basically, it's just announcing how to do the 2-day food diary. It's systemized so you don't have to do anything. You don't, after the coaching call, the sales call, you just turn up to the coaching call and they're there having done what you need them to do. Yeah. So the simplicity of it is 2 days of food. Take a photo of each food meal that you have, and that's it. Mm-hmm. I don't want anything else. I'm not giving them anything. I'm still not going to give them anything after that, by the way, after the first coaching call, as in prescription of like food and plans and stuff. At this point, I just want them to take 2 days of food diaries. The other thing that they do is, as you can see here, how to take your measurements. I just want them to turn up on the first call with their measurements. I don't take photos at this point. That should be changed, by the way, Ash.
Oh, it's that they move it, that's all. It's set up so that they can adjust it for their call. That's why it's done that way.
Okay, cool. All right. So I used to take photos. I don't anymore because I think that a lot of people don't like doing it. So I want a coaching call to go through why I want them to do it then. So I actually get them to do that after the first coaching call. So all you need is the measurements. In that email, it's basically an email with you with some photos. Here's how to take your measurements. Here's how to look at dress sizes, waist sizes, weights on the scale. And that's basically all I want people to turn up on the first call with. That's it. Then on the first coaching call, we have a structure. I have a structure called the 9-box coaching call, which is basically how to run a high-value coaching conversation. I don't think you've got that here, have you, Ash?
Not yet.
No.
This is one from Amanda's.
No, it's not in there anyway. It's separate training. Okay. So on the first coaching call, really what I then do is I share the 2-day food diary, and I basically just bring it up. And the photos appear, and like we went back to the 12-week blueprint, we looked at 2-day food diary. Yeah, 2 choices including breakfast. Well, what do we need to be able to do that? We need photos of their nutrition. Can you see what they are currently eating? Because remember, this is leading up to the first coaching call. Yeah, and I want a 2-day food diary. So then on the actual coaching call, I just screen share that 2-day food diary, and I basically say, I sometimes say, what are your thoughts, first of all? And normally what they do at this point is there's normally like a little laugh of like embarrassment or like, hee hee, like a little kid, like, it's like donuts for breakfast and frappuccino latte. And they're like, and they'll be like, look. And sometimes I have to show, look, it's okay. Sometimes they feel really bad about themselves, and you can see that. And so you calibrate to just be really supportive. Sometimes sometimes it's just atrocious. And so I just asked them, what do you think? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a couple of changes. What do you think is the first thing that we can change? And I just asked them, and it normally is like staring you in the face. So I don't know, like I've had clients before, they drink like 2 cans of Coke a day. It's like, what do you want to change? And the fact is, questions are the answers. If you really want to become a coach and you want to influence your clients, way better than everyone does around you, by the way, is learn to ask questions. Stop telling people. Like, just ask them, what do you want to change? Now, they might say something that you think you know better, but Phil talks about this. He's like, you're better to be effective than right. So if they see, I don't know, let's say that they're eating, let's say they're eating toast. Would I ideally want them to eat like eggs and, tomatoes? Yes. Would it be better if they swapped toast in for, say, muesli? In the old days, it'd be like, no, I don't want muesli. It's good enough at this point. Awesome. So most of the time it stands out like way bigger than that. So I just do it with them. If they say something stupid, like let's say they go, oh, I'm going to eat Special K. I don't judge them. I understand why they said that. I'll use question styles to be able to help them see that. Okay, cool. So listen, do you mind within our working together that sometimes I just help you see there's a lot of nutrition myths out there? Is that okay if sometimes I just help you see that maybe something that we believe to be healthy isn't always healthy? And they'll get what I'm saying, and they'll be like, because I don't want to tell them, I'm just asking questions still. And they'll say yes. I say, cool. So I know it might sound strange, but if I told you that Special K is not actually that healthy, would it surprise you? Oh my God, it would. Awesome. So what would you say if I suggested that we choose something that's based on protein? Would you be up for that? And they might not know this. So again, you have to sort of understand where they are. I might tell them. And again, I can say, would it surprise you if I said that one of the reasons why protein is really good is because it keeps you fuller for longer? Have you heard? Oh, yeah, I've heard that. They don't feel like they've been told off or talked down to. They feel like they're an adult in an adult conversation. And then they'll start going, yeah, I have heard that. We say, awesome. Do you know what proteins you'd want to eat? And I'm doing everything that I can to do it in the form of questions. So they feel like they've come to the conclusion themselves, whereas actually really I've led them there, but I might have to. That's perfectly fine. Generally speaking, I want them to change their breakfast. And I usually want them to change one other thing. And my aim is for them to decide, not me.
I really want to do an experiment. I'm still thinking about actually doing it with a client, about actually trying to do a 12-week transformation program for weight loss anyway, without ever actually telling them anything. I just want to do it for entire questions. I want to try it. I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible.
I do.
So I might do it and blog about it, see what happens. Just the whole thing.
I actually think you could. And I think that you could probably do it. like one of the things that like I do with my coaching calls is like, right, and again, this is levels. I get this. Like, I actually run a personal development program as well for men. Sometimes I want to teach them. So one of the things in the diagnostic phase is that you're coaching your clients to be coached. So you're helping them realize that by asking questions all the time and not always trying to jump to solution, you're helping them realize that they're the ones making the decisions here. You're enabling them. You can feed this back. You can say things to them like, hey, have you noticed, by the way, in these first 2 weeks, you've actually made all the decisions on all of this? And they'll look at you and go, oh yeah, what does that tell you? And they'll go, oh, and they'll get insights. I'll be like, you notice that I've not actually really told you anything at all. You've actually been doing all this yourself. Do you think that's useful? Yes. Why would you say that? And then they'll start to get it. They'll start to say, you know what? And again, this is about sort of changing self-image. It's about empowering them to make decisions. And it's feedback loops. They start to realize that I'm doing this. So in the personal development stuff, sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm going to not say anything. And I'll just shut up, because it forces the other person to go a little bit deeper with their thought processes. So it's probably a good place to lead into some of the coaching models. Now, this is out of scope of what we're talking about today, just because of time more than anything else. But one of the things about like what we've done is we've looked at all the things that we learned from life coaching, from people like DeMartini, people reading books on persuasion and influence, reading books on evolutionary psychology, all sorts of things about understanding how change situation works and how the human mind works. And what we tried to do is take a lot of these things and bring them into the fitness industry. So DeMartini is, anyone can Google that, by the way. It's a really good tool because it helps your clients. Number one, it helps them become more self-aware. So all that means is they just start to understand their actions and their thought processes and why they make the choices that they do. But it also allows you to motivate your clients because you understand what's really important to their clients, to your clients. So what happens with have you ever done it, Ash, by the way?
I've never actually used that. I've used similar things before, but never actually done that with anybody.
So just for context, if you're watching, all it does is it's like, what are the most important 3 things in your life? And a value is like family, work, business, making money, holidays, travel, charity, relationships.
I used to have one of those little kind of round things. Used to draw like that. What you call them, those little chart pie things. I used to make
Wheel of Life.
Yeah, Wheel of Life type. Yeah. So similar sort of thing to that.
The good thing about this is it's actually very self-explanatory because what you can do is it's just 13 questions that they answer. Like, what do you fill your room with? What do you talk about when you're out? What do you invest your money in? Where are you most organized? Questions like this. And so when you finish that with a client, the reason I do it early on is because I'm teaching my clients, again, diagnostic phase. I'm coaching my clients to be coached. I'm helping them see that this is not just a fitness program that you did when you spent $300 with whoever. Like, this is actually a program where we're going to start actually understanding you as a person. But also what happens, often things come up like work or family. That's often a lot of the things that come up. And then we use a model called past, present, future. So when we're discussing that in the next coaching call, say, what any thoughts from when you did it? And they'll say, oh, and they might say something, they might say no. They might say, oh, okay, cool. Looking at it now, and I screen share, looking at it now, is there anything that stands out to you? And then I might say, and it gives other questions as well, but then I might say, moving forward, how do you think that us recognizing this, how do you think that this might help keep you motivated through the program? So looking forward. And what we're really trying to help them see is they're sitting there and saying that the most important thing to them is their kids. Cool. Why do you think losing weight might be good for that? Why might it benefit your kids? And they'll start telling you with the right questions, they'll start telling you why that is. Well, number one, they won't fucking die. Number two, they'll say things like, I'll be able to run around with my kids at night. I'll get home and I won't just collapse on the sofa. Okay, cool. Why is that important to you? Well, it means I'll have more energy. Okay, and why does that matter? There's a thing called a 5 whys, and it's just like, why? well, I'd be able to, okay, what would you do with the extra time? Well, I'd be playing with my kids. Okay, and why is that important to you? Well, so my kids. I'm like, yeah, I get that, but why is it important that you play with your kids? And what you'll find, by the way, if you really dig here and you want to spend the time learning this, you'll get to a place where it's like someone will sit there and tell you that their dad never played with them. They grew up without a relationship with their dad. And they would never want that to be the case with their kids. It's like, shit, man, when you start having those conversations, everything that you do with your clients is a lot easier. Like, they stop bullshitting you, they stop bullshitting themselves, and they realize that they're doing this because actually it's not just I want to lose weight, it's because I want to actually have a relationship with my children. And it allows you to start digging a little bit deeper in the mindset of why they're doing what they're doing. That's an awesome start. And it goes, who are you now? Which is, if you look at, you can, it's basic coaching model. Who are you now? Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? Do you have time to go through the 5 reasons why you can't?
Yeah, you can do if you want to. Got 5-10 minutes or so.
So clients have a lot of self-doubt. They have a lot of self-talk. So they beat themselves up. They think that they're a waste of space. They think they can't do this. They don't always verbalize that to you because they don't feel like they can, and they don't feel safe, and they don't feel like it's you want to listen. And a lot of personal trainers don't want to listen. But actually, we need to understand why they don't think they can do it. Like, one option, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, is like people do things like they stand in front of the mirror. I'm the best, I can do this. I'm just like, yeah, but it's not quite how sometimes the brain works. So I actually get them to write down all the reasons why they can't lose the weight that they want to lose in the transformation that we're doing. So I say, okay, you've said you want to lose 20 pounds in this 12 weeks. I want you to write down all the reasons why you don't believe you can do it. And I can kind of have a little conversation, but there's videos and stuff that they get, by the way, that shows them how to do this. And then what I get them to do is I get them to write them reasons down. And then I get them to come back a day or two later and answer those reasons of why that might not be the truth. So the best example I could give is I'm too busy. So what most trainers do when their clients say they're too busy is they get frustrated. They try and tell their clients, like, you're not too busy. They try and even do things like, well, could you not just get up earlier? Yeah. And the client's like, yeah. And the client doesn't do it. It's partly because of how there's a thing in transactional analysis called adult parent child. And it's basically the way that they feel like they've been talked down to. We don't mean to do it, but we need them to feel like we're on their side. They need to have come up with the solution. Casper said to me, is like, he did something that he goes that every other Fit Pro mentor that he's ever worked with tried to get him to do, but he didn't do it because he didn't understand why. And just by being able to ask him the right questions and help him see that it was his idea, which it clearly wasn't, he did it and he understood it. So the way that this works is like, if you take I'm busy, like rationally, we know that they're wrong and they're full of shit. And we can sit there and we can say, yeah, but everyone else is busy. Richard Branson trains and all that. Or we can get them to write it down. I'm too busy to work out. And yet think about what's going to happen when they come back the next day and they read that. Like, they're actually almost embarrassed sometimes, and they realize how ridiculous it is. Now, other things that they say can be a little bit deeper. It depends how self-aware they are. Sometimes they're like, they'll say stupid things like, my metabolism is slow. Okay. So it doesn't matter. It's on paper. Sometimes they're like, I'm fearful that I might fail. It depends on how self-aware they are and how much coaching you've done with them up to this point. But they'll say all sorts. What do you think they'd say, Ash?
Sorry, I was reading some comments that came up there. Or some of that, about some of the things people might say why they can't do something.
Yeah, why they can't lose the weight.
A lot of my have is, obviously, I think we said it, busy, being too busy for it, don't have the time, don't have the knowledge is normally a common one. Like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I like too many foods. They have cravings. They say I've had all sorts
Yeah,
of
and so then if they come back the next day and they go, I like my favourite foods. Well, what would they say to that? They might, and especially if you've been helping coach them, they might say, I do like my favourite foods, but maybe what I could do is, instead of eating a whole pizza and smashing down 1,500 calories, maybe I'll just eat like a third. Maybe I'll have like a thin based instead of a thick one. They'll start solving their own problems at this point. They'll start realizing that these aren't the truth. There's a book called Byron Katie, Loving What Is, and she uses 4 questions, but 2 questions are really awesome. The first 2 questions: is that true? Do you absolutely 100% know that to be true? It's like, I can't lose weight without giving up all my favorite foods. Is that true? Do you absolutely know that to be true?
It's just not a belief, isn't it? That's the difference. Yeah. I think people think a belief is not true. A belief is just what you believe. It's not the truth, and there's a difference between the two. I think those kind of questions are a good way of helping someone maybe realize their beliefs are not quite the fact that they think it is, or the truth that they think it is.
And the thing is, like, a belief is so strong that they will argue with you.
Yeah.
They would argue
even to the extent where they might even sound silly and they know they sound silly sometimes.
Yeah, but they won't, because they'll just dig in, and then you're like, it's like arguing with a vegan. You're never going to fucking convince them, however silly they are. No. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so
I love your analogies. I can't argue with a vegan.
I used to be a vegetarian, so I'm allowed to.
Yeah, allowed to. He was halfway there.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I'm cutting him.
It's so bad. And so they'll answer their own questions. So then you go on to 30 things towards values. So this is actually an easy one that anyone could do. If you've understood the top 3 values, which you've done in the DeMartini values, you can actually just get them to write it down. You could do this earlier. I want you to go and write 30 reasons why getting in shape or losing the 20 pounds will benefit your top 3 values. And you'll have clients go, oh, I don't know, and they'll get stuck at 2. You have to coach them through that, and you say to them things like, and this is all in the videos, look, you might sit down and it might be like you get writer's block. Don't worry, it's totally normal. But what often happens with clients is when they start getting 1 or 2 or 3, they just start, and by the time they get to 30, they want to keep writing. Totally cool, you don't have to, but think about it. Like, and then you give them examples. Some clients have said this, some clients have said that. If they're really into their, if they're really family orientated, and that came out in the values, they might be saying they can run around their kids more often. And you should be able to find 30 reasons why they should be able to find 30 reasons why getting in shape is going to benefit their values. Because what you've done now is you've taken this from I want to lose weight. Why? Just want to lose weight. I remember when I was in the gym and I'd go up to people, and I was better than most people at it, but I was still sucked a bit. And I was like, there'd be that big fat woman on the treadmill. And I was like, and she would be defensive because obviously everyone talked to her. And I was like, I'm just trying to get fit. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not trying to get fit. You're trying to lose weight because you're morbidly obese. But she won't
admit it.
She won't admit it. And it's like, there's no connection. And of course she's defensive, and I get that. And, but it's like your clients are almost like her. They I just want to get fit. I just want to get fit. No, they don't. No, they don't. There's something deep down why they're doing this. And you need to help them connect to that. Because when you do help them connect to the real reasons why they're doing this, they start to realize that I'm doing this because I want to fucking have a relationship with my children. I'm doing this because I don't want to it's probably not even have a heart attack, to be honest. It's normally things that are right now. I'm doing this because it's going to make me more money. If you can help a client see how it's going to make them more money, both in here and in the sales conversation, they're much more likely to buy your stuff. They're much more likely to do it. If you can help a guy who's single, like, why being in shape would help that, and not just, I'm in shape. It's like, it has to be a lot deeper than that. It's like a lot of again, the personal development stuff that I do, a lot of guys who want to get into shape and that are really trying, there's usually something that's driven deep down of why they're doing it, and it's normally about females. So the more that they can attach a meaning to what they're doing, the more likely all the bullshit excuses that you normally hear will disappear. I'm going to leave the last 2 out because I think they start to get a little bit too...
Yeah, a bit too deep.
Yeah, a bit too deep and a bit too complicated. Is there any questions,
Ash? There's only technical ones, really, to answer here. Just like I was asking about screen sharing. That's what I was typing back to somebody. That's what I was typing, not mention it. just use Skype or Zoom. That's all she said.
Yeah.
That one. But no, I think.
Let me just finish as an example with MyFitnessPal. So if you see there, what I do is I simply just ask them in week 3, foundation phase. I've not asked them to do anything on MyFitnessPal. I just asked them to download MyFitnessPal. This is a real good example of what a coaching approach is actually about. Step by step. Like, you don't need to do everything at once. I asked them in week 1. So 1 week I'm saying, I just want you to download MyFitnessPal. That's it. That's all I want them to do. Then the next week I asked them to track calories for breakfast. I'm not telling them how much to eat. I've obviously given them some information about what to eat. I'm not telling them I just want them to track it. Again, what gets measured gets managed. Automatically, they normally make changes anyway. They're less likely to have sometimes it's informational as well. Sometimes it's like, fuck me, I didn't realize that a whole avocado and a whole bowl of nuts and, was like all that. So
that's healthy and good for weight loss, apparently.
So again, you've let them see that, right? So they realize this stuff just from that. Sometimes it's just like, again, I want them, because what will happen is with most people that are saying that they're to you that they're tracking their food properly, they're not. But they also feel stupid to tell you, and they also just feel stupid. They're just lying to you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even track my food properly half the time.
And this is your job.
Yeah, it's my job.
Partly it's just like that. So what it also does is when you get someone to do tracking their breakfast, it takes it from what in their mind is a 15, 16, 17-hour job, and it turns it into a 10-minute job. And what it does is it shows them bit by bit. They turn up at the end of the week. How did you get on? Yeah, I tracked it every day. Great. How did you feel about that? Oh, it was so much easier than I thought. Okay, cool. What does that tell you about using it? Oh man, I don't know what the problem was. All that. Okay, cool. What do you want to do next? And so then you've given them some frames of reference. You've given them not only belief, but it's like if you're going to learn Russian. I'm in Kiev at the moment. Like I can't learn War and Peace. Like that's basically what you're doing when you're asking your clients to track all of their food for the whole week, and you've given them macros as well. It's too much. Like even if they say they can do it, they're lying to you. So I then I just ask them to track their calories for the day. I'm not giving them specific information. They know already, they've got some input from food like lunch and dinner, but just by tracking things, they will change their habits. Then I start in week 6. That's when I start giving them deficits. Like this is the way I do it. And I know people are different in this, and that's kind of why this is a blueprint, because people can put their own thoughts into it. Generally speaking, at that point, what I'll do is I'll get them to do a 500 calorie deficit 5 days a week, and I give them a protein goal. I don't really care whether the rest of it comes from carbs or protein or fats. To be honest, it's like I'm just improving where most people are. So if you get someone at this point by week 6 and they're confidently tracking MyFitnessPal and they're doing it properly, which they will be, or they're much more likely to be if you've done it like this, bit by bit, step by step, what they'll do is you can then push it on and start to become a bit more complex. I don't usually track macros until at least week 8. Or program macros, I should say. And to be honest, a lot of the time I don't. You can see, like, as it gets towards the end and the acceleration phase, there's some days where I'm like, I should change the name of that. Actually, I've changed the name from treat days. There's some days where towards the end of it, they're hardcore. We're tracking steps. We're tracking like 500, 600, 700 calorie deficit, sometimes even more. We're really going for it. We're training like quite a lot. You can see again, optional checkpoint at the top. Not all clients want to do that, and it's just a conversation that you have with them about whether they would want to or whether they're happy with the results they're getting. So you can really go to town at the end.
It's very kind of start slow, finish fast approach, isn't it?
Huge. That's one of the big principles of the 12-week blueprint. Ash, did you have any things that you want to say about how people can take this with what we're going to give them, which is the Excel doc, and actually go and like start putting this into PTD?
PTD. Yeah, I think I always try and say for most things with PTD, I think one of the best things you can ever do when it comes to working out your program is actually to do something like this, is to create a kind of blueprint where you can kind of get an idea of where you want to put stuff inside. And all I would literally do is kind of how Tim's exactly set this up. Start off with like a pre-week or an onboarding week, put that into a group and just onboard your client that way and keep it nice and simple. 2-day food diary in there. I wouldn't schedule anything inside. I literally just have it there, have the conversation with them, say this is what you're going to do. Maybe put in an email just to say, onboard them, say hello, ask them what you want to do to come to the first call. And once you come in your first call, I will then literally, like we've done with Tim's internship clients in here, is literally just set all the stuff up that we've got inside this blueprint and just work your way through week by week, dripping this stuff in like drip feed of stuff. Just do a nice simple video, keeping photos and stuff in the food diary, and it shouldn't be overcomplicated at all. And Tim's kind of like hit the nail on the head. It needs to be as simple as possible. And I think that's one of the key things of anything online, and especially when it comes to systems and stuff like this, is simple is so much better, because you might think you'd give them more, but the more stuff you have in here for your clients, the harder it's going to be for them. They're not going to know where to start. They don't want to go and sit through an app reading 20, 30 minutes worth of stuff. They don't want to sit there watching an hour's worth of videos and doing work on it. They want to be able to get on there, complete something, move on, get on with their life, and carry on with the next one. And I think that's kind of what you need to do here. But it is literally as simple as that. Work your way through the blueprint. There's picking bits out here. I wouldn't even overcomplicate it more than that. I wouldn't worry too much from the workout side. I know some people have mentioned about what about exercise and workouts. We kind of talked about that earlier anyway. I really wouldn't even bother putting in the workouts.
Yeah, I do want to kind of just quickly touch on that, Ash, if that's all right.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not bothered about workouts. I totally am. What I'm saying is, like, I don't, and this would be my strong advice to you if you're watching, you don't need to do anything in the diagnostic phase, because in the first 2 weeks, the client, it's like, how would you take a personal training client on board?
You asking?
You wouldn't create a program for them until you've spoken to them. Yeah. A doctor would say prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, hence the diagnostic phase. So you don't need to give them anything in the first 2 weeks, because actually, like I said, most of them just need to train more. If they're already training well, that's not the problem. So I don't give them, the only thing that you need to do is that you need, and this is the skill of a coach, by the way, is that they need to have certainty. That's all they need to have. As long as they've got certainty, I'm okay. So I don't care what are you going to do? We talk about what and how. So what are you going to do? I'm going to work out. Okay. How are you going to do that? So what are you actually going to go and do? Oh, I haven't thought about that. Okay, let's think about it now. You're going to work out 3 times next week. What are you going to do? I'm going to book in some classes. Awesome. When are you going to do that? Cool. Yeah. Any reason you can think of why you can't do that? So I'm not fussed about what they're doing in the first 2 weeks at least. Then a lot of what I do is actually, I say the magic happens on the coaching call. Coaching calls are the foundation of high value coaching. Anyone who's teaching you that it's a check-in, which I do call them sometimes, that's not enough. It's not what really changes people. It's not what creates the value that you should be delivering for people. The shift, the movements, the coaching, the insights, the aha moments, they all happen with understanding what it is to be a coach. It's the skills of being a coach, the knowledge. So I actually do a lot of it on the call. So, okay, listen, up till now, we've got you moving more. How are you feeling about the fact that you've worked out 3 times for the last 3 weeks? You've not worked out for the last 6 months. I feel amazing. Okay, cool. How about we start doing some stuff around giving you a little program to follow at home? Yeah, that would be, have you ever heard the idea of like training with weights makes you starts, and it's up to you what you want to say to people. It's like, changes your metabolism, and maybe they don't. So you then say, do you mind if I quickly tell you? No. Well, would you be surprised if someone said that by building lean muscle tissue, it burns more calories? Oh yeah, I've heard that. So could you see why there's a benefit of us doing some resistance training? Yeah. Look, one of the things that you could do, did you know you could just do it at home? Oh, I didn't know. Awesome. Would you like to do that? Yes, blah, blah, blah. So then I would say, okay, so what do you want to do? What does it look like? What do you enjoy doing? I had this conversation with my client, and one of them basically said that she wanted a program. I think it was about week 4. And I gave her, I used to have like just some photos that I'd done. And to be honest, they weren't mine, someone else's. And I put them on a PDF. She came back the next week. She goes, I just felt a bit silly. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She goes, I just feel silly working out at home. Or she didn't say working out. She said exercising at home. Like, I feel silly. I'd like to do it to music. I was like, okay, cool. What music do you like? And she's like, oh, and then she started getting all excited. I was like, what the hell? She's like, oh, I used to love going to this class. I was like, okay, is it the music? She goes, yeah, it just gets me. And if I can listen to music, I'll train for half an hour. I was like, and I just thought about it. I was like, how about we go onto YouTube and find some workouts for you? She's like, she loved it. So we literally on our coaching call, we opened up YouTube. We're like, we chose it from what music was best. Now, obviously, I was making adjustments to it. That's not dumbass shit. Like I know enough about an exercise routine to go, that's good enough. It was like, it couldn't be totally stupid. Had lunges, it had planks, it had some stuff. It was good enough at this point. So then I was like, and we traded to her and she did it every fucking day the next week and she loved it. So I worked so hard. That's what we want. Like, especially at the beginning, certainty is what they need. As we progress them through the foundation phase, did I used to get some of my clients doing like an actual program with reps and sets and tracking their weights? Yeah, I did, but it's usually right towards the end, and also it depends on who they are. For men, if they want to sort of get a bit, men aren't going to bulk up in 12 weeks; they just get leaner. So I did do a little bit more with men around weight training programs. With women, it's not as much. You know, it depends who they were. I did a lot of arms because they were brides, but I didn't used to do that until way through the program, and a lot of it was done on the coaching call with them. So I'd actually coach them through, how long do you want this to be? What exercises don't you like doing? What do you know how to do? And so you do it on but the cool thing about it is you can go and get clients without having to put all of that in. Now, one of the things that you could do is you could eventually get to a place where, let's say you've had your first 3 clients through, you've got some templates there to work on. You know, you've got some templates, especially if you do the high value stuff. Remember, you charge enough, so you've got time to give people individualized programs.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good things about using PT for this, because if you do it once, you don't put all that kind of stuff in. You use the basic stuff you've got set up here, like the tracking side, the video stuff and things like that, the emails. You build it for one client, and then you record it, you save it, you duplicate it, you tweak if you need to. And then eventually that process, the first client, you might spend more time putting this stuff together to help them. But then the next time it becomes quicker, the next time it comes quicker, and it just saves you that time. But you're still going through that coaching call process, that checkpoint process.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. Yeah. Cool. Happy days. Interesting maybe questions. We've got more people on now as well. So coming towards the end, we get more people turning up.
Was there any more questions about any of this?
No, I think we're all good. Do you want to tell us a bit about kind of your group as well, the group that you and Phil run, and also the internship as well?
So the Institute of Fitness Behaviour Change, what we're aiming to do is take a lot of it's like, we're not suggesting that you want to run off and become life coaches, but what we are saying is, who are the people that are the best at changing behaviours? What can we learn from them? What can we take from reading a book about personal development, and how can we bring that into what we're doing? Totally within scope of practice. We're not psychologists. We're not doing that. Nothing that we've talked about today is like, you shouldn't be doing this. And actually what we're doing is like, how can you make your clients, how can you be the trainer coach who gets results with 9 out of 10 of their clients instead of 3? If you want to learn if you want to sell high ticket, unless you want to be a dick, you should be delivering on it, because what will end up happening is it will come back and bite you in the ass. And what happens with most people is, even if they're sort of psychopathic enough to deal with the fact that they're taking all this money off people and the clients aren't happy, which they won't be, by the way, unless you're doing something really good, you'll end up giving up. Most people do. So if you want to go down the route of the more lower ticket stuff, the automation, fine, do that. But if you want to go to the route of the high value stuff and charge decent money, understand that there's a new skill set that you should be learning about. We put loads of free content in the group, like
it's really
way
free
too
patch then.
probably. You know, there's so many of these things we give away, like the 12-week blueprint is a thing that I've created in there. I think you can actually go and find this. In fact, you can. It's like no one's teaching how do you actually run a coaching call.
You've got that little that almost like a coaching call blueprint, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a whole training around what do you actually do on the first coaching call. If you've never sold high value stuff or never had a high value client, it's like, what do you even say when you get on that first? I ain't got a fucking clue. I turned up and I just sold someone a £1,200 program, and I was like, what do we do?
What I talk about now.
Yeah. I was like, shit, I need to know that. I need to know. She's like, what do we do? And I'm like, don't know, what do we do?
So your small talk starts extending to the whole length of the call.
It was terrible. But it was like I kind of made it up, and then eventually, like trial and terror, I got it right. It was like most people, no one knows how to do this, because also a lot of the marketers, that's not what they do. They're not teaching people actually. They'll sit there and they'll say, yeah, you can use our delivery systems. Really? It's like someone's telling someone who doesn't know how to personal train, which is a skill set. It's okay, you can use my system of how to personal train people. And like, do I not need to learn how to become a personal trainer as well as learn your systems of how to do it? And it's the same for me with online coaching, with high value online coaching. It's like skills and systems is what we're trying to teach in there. And we're trying to take an art form, which is coaching, which is lots of, I mean, even the stuff we've talked about today. And how can you impart that kind of knowledge into some systems where it's easy to follow? It's the blueprint. We teach what to say, and when I say teach, this is all in the free group. Like how to run your first coaching call, how to run your second coaching call, and why they're different. Then what to do through the 12 weeks. It's like what to do on each of those calls. I think that's in there. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not. But it's like you could use the first one. In fact, it might be. It's like week 2 onwards. What do you actually do? Some of the coaching models that we've talked about, we actually have probably gone over each of one of those individually within that, or certainly most of them. There's something that we did not long ago, which is the coaching health scorecard, which people really enjoyed doing.
That was good, actually. That was really good.
Yeah, and it was like just getting your clients used to like talking about the stuff they've done with you. So that was really helpful. We're just like, I remember back in the day when we started, like when I started, me and Phil, everyone was into like a lot of the kind of, it was Check at first, and then it was Poliquin, and everyone got really into that. And then it was like more recently, I think that people really started getting into, because they talked a lot of like nutrition, which was a bit questionable sometimes. And then I think the market moved, the personal training market, and the leaders were sort of talking about like evidence-based nutrition and stuff like this, which has been much more relevant for the last sort of 3 or 4 or 5 years. But I think that, and everyone was talking about online for a bit because it was the new thing. Going forward, I think that there are people that are at the top of the industry or leading that they are starting to realize that if I want to stand out, I need to have a skill set, and I need to I want to go down that route of body transformation. I want to be a transformation coach, not just a personal trainer. And I think that the industry is understanding that a lot more. I think there's probably 3 reasons why. Number one is that the internet allows you to do coaching really well wherever you are. So not only like online, fully online clients, but also if you've got clients in the gym, you can do things like hybrids. So you can actually do like coaching with your clients, like that are normal clients. You can do it as well. I think when we started reading about personal development and stuff, it wasn't discussed in the fitness industry, and Facebook wasn't what it is now. And I also think that clients now understand coaching a lot more. It's a lot more acceptable. It's a lot more big podcasts, like even things like Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson, people like that. These books are becoming a lot more acceptable, and a lot more people are reading about this stuff online as well. So when you talk to clients, they get it a bit more than back in the day when, you know, people didn't have those environments to learn about psychology and stuff. Look how many people follow Jordan Peterson. It's unfucking real. And so I think there's that as well. And I just think that it's coming around to people like realizing in the industry that you're always having to evolve. Like something needs to make you stand out from other people. And I think the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years is all about behavior change. And I think that if you get on board that not before other people, but you really make it part of what you do. If you've done the nutrition, if you've done the training, if you know about that, it should be the next step that you're looking at, because I think that it will make you a much better coach, and you'll make a fuck of a lot more money as well, by the way, a lot more money. And yeah, so we talk about that. We teach that a lot in the group. So do you want to put the link in, Ash?
Yeah. I'll put the link I'll put it in the comments, but I'll also put it in the main bit at the top as well. I'm going to edit it in a minute there. And then, obviously there's the internship as well.
Yep.
Which I'm guessing they can get access to from the group if they go.
Yeah, you can. We'll put. I'll tell you what we'll do. But we'll put a link for the syllabus. So if anyone's interested in just checking out the syllabus and what we teach, it's a coaching program. I mean, it's an education program. I think the big difference with what we're trying to do is a lot of people are teaching like it's classroom learning, which is great. But what we want to do is like you learn coaching from doing. So as part of the program, what we do is we show you how to go out and get some beta clients. So you actually go out and get some clients. We'll help you with that. We'll help you with the onboard and stuff and everything like that and how to sell. And then you bring clients in. And the aim of that is to practice your coaching within the systems that we give you. You charge a little bit less than you will at some point. We call it like a beta program. And basically you go out and you get like 4 or 5 clients, not crazy money, but still decent value, enough for the person to take notice and you to feel like you're learning while getting paid. And the big difference is we're sitting there with you every single week with your clients while you're running them through your program, which we help you create, which Ash does, by the way. And so if you've ever got any problems, you just like come and talk to us and we'll say, look, this might be what's going on. Have you done this? Have you done that? Did you do this with the system? Blah, blah, blah. We help you run them clients through. You get 3 C's: cash, confidence, and clients. And we also added another one, which is case studies. So basically you get those things. You get cash, confidence, clients, and case studies from the beta version of your program. And then we teach you how to go out and bring this to market, like to launch your flagship program. But what you've done is you've launched it from a place of knowledge, confidence, like experience. You've done it with clients already. And then when you feel ready, you can probably go and put your prices up and do that stuff. So it's definitely an education program, but it is also one that is done in the trenches, not in a classroom.
Yeah, I love it. I think the whole concept, like the premise of the program, when you first told me about it was a while ago now, but when you first told me about it, when you were first thinking about it, you and Phil, I thought it was incredible, really, because there's just nothing like it. Nothing like it.
It is fucking awesome. I'm sorry, I can't help it.
It is so. It is. It's such a clever idea. It's such a clever idea. It's such a clever idea. And I said, there's nothing else out there like it.
It's the best program we've ever done. It really is. It's the best program we've ever done. It's not crazily expensive. We're doing it because we like doing this. I love teaching fucking behavior change. We could sit here for another 2 hours talking about it. So, it is a program. It's not one of these, you're going to make 10 grand a month like next month. But the difference is we think that when you teach someone how to coach, it's an ethos that if you're in the fitness industry for a career, that's one of the people that I think you should come and check our stuff out. Like if you're doing this because it's a career, not it's just because it's, the only thing that you could be bothered to do. Like you actually like, what, I love learning. I love understanding people. I care about getting results from my clients and impact. And probably wanting to develop as well. That's a big thing that we do. So you obviously get like access to us. We do it. We run the program, not some person that we sort of pull in and get to do the so-called coaching. So yeah, people can find out the syllabus as well. So we'll give them a link to that.
Cool. That's awesome. I'll pop it in. I think that's it, mate. I think we're all done. Happy days. Nice and easy. 2 hours again.
It's not too bad actually, because we did do a lot of actual stuff.
Yeah, that is true, actually. More than just gassing. Just what normally
happens.
It's
11 o'clock on a Friday night, and I'm in Kiev, man, and I'm talking to you.
I know. I feel honoured.
I should be out.
I know. It's been on a Friday night as well. What are you doing, Tim? Wasting time with me. Cool. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing that all with us. And I'll put the links. You put the link for the syllabus. I don't think I've got the syllabus link.
I'll send it over to you if you want to put it all in the main post that we've done today. If you want to do that,
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll put it on the main post and send it through. And I'll cheers, man. Thank you very much.
All right. Speak soon.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. See you later, guys. Bye bye.